Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abi.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Hey, friends. Before we get started, we've been getting emails from people saying, hey, I want more in-depth information on that life consulting masterclass that you guys are putting on in January. So with that said, we sat down, brainstormed, and we decided to have a live consulting call on Saturday, October 14th at 2:00 Pacific time. So if you're interested and you want to sit down and hear from other consultants that we've trained up and also students about what it looks like and also ask all the questions you want about the school, we're great with that. All you have to do is email us at support@stumvalconsulting.com and we'll go ahead and get back a Zoom link to you. Get back to you with a Zoom link. And yeah, it'll be a fun time. We have some good laughs and we also get to hear some good stories. And without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Abby's got food in her mouth. Yeah. Yum, 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 yum. Trying to eat some breakfast. She just got herself out of the old sauna.
Oh, yeah. I'm very, very hot right
She's
now.
only wearing half of her clothes. I'm not going to tell you which half she's not wearing.
That sounds so dirty.
Trying to get her cool down on.
I am very warm.
Yeah, you are very hot.
I'm wearing more clothes than people wear to the swimming pool.
It's true. If they don't live in Europe. Okay.
They don't live in Europe.
You have to really think about that one. Hey, we just got back from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh,
we got to go there. We got to go to Greenville. We saw some amazing friends. It was a birthday extravaganza. We had
awesome.
a heart experience with John and Tiffany Matthews, because if you've been listening for a while on here, y'all heard Tiffany share on her podcast what's going on at the Gate Church over there.
And we went to check it out, and it was
glorious.
Awesome. It was life transforming. We brought several members of our team out there with us.
Very powerfully impacted by that experience.
Very exciting. I'm going back.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you are. I think I'm going to go hang out with Johnny and help take care of the kids while you go hang out with PT over there.
No.
I think it'll be really fun.
Man time.
Yeah, we're going to destroy that house. PT's gone. Us and the kids will play. So while we were there, today we're going to do part 2. If you didn't listen to part 1 yet, part 1 last week, we're doing a 2-part series on creating a successful life. Last week, we were having a conversation about practicalities. This week, we're going to have a conversation about heart posture. So
like last week was like actions, like things to do.
Yeah, action steps versus like, hey, this is a heart posture. If I live this way, this is going to help creating this successful life I want. But before we do, I want to have that conversation about North Carolina, because it's a fun little jump start to the whole episode, because it was my birthday and I was really hoping for some good experiences for my birthday, which I got.
Yes.
So the first night we were there, we went to a prayer meeting service that was very impactful for both Abby and I.
Yeah.
And afterwards, it was like 9:30 when we got out at night. 9:45, we ended up finding a bar to go eat some food at with us and our team. It got there at like 10 o'clock. 10:20, the waitress finally comes to talk to us and says, the grill's shut down. It's shut down at 10 o'clock. We shouldn't have given you those menus.
I know. We were so hungry because we hadn't eaten until like really, really early.
I was politely hangry.
Oh, we were all hangry.
Yeah, I kept my face like,
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'm going to murder you.
So we picked whatever the other restaurant was that was open.
Duckworth.
Yes. And what we didn't know.
We were in 2 cars.
Yep.
And so half our team went in one car. We went in the other car. And we got to Duckworth. We're sitting outside because we wanted an outside booth. And they text us and they're like, where are you guys?
We're like, outside. Where are you?
They're like, outside, it's closed.
We said, no, it's not closed. We're literally sitting out here. They're like, no, they said it's closed. I'm like, well, I know it's not closed. We went back and forth for a good 5 minutes.
Yeah, until it was like.
Then they said, we're in a corner booth inside. And so I ran inside and looked at all the booths. They were not in that Duckworth.
Nope. Nope, they weren't. They were in the wrong. We were in different Duckworths.
Yes. And ironically, I picked the Duckworth that we went to, and it was far away. And I remember feeling so disheartened when I was so hungry and I saw how far away it was. I was like, oh gosh, it's like 10 or 15 minutes from here.
Yeah. So
they picked the one that was literally in our hotel parking lot.
Yep. So all that to say, I end up telling them, Kyle already had his beer. And I was like, Kyle, you're going to chug your beer. You tell him to chug his beer. We are going to make this happen over here. I will get there at Order's place. But there was like definitely this thing of like, we found ourselves at this Duckworth very specifically. So, right. And felt very, very interesting as the night unfolded. We had this waitress and her name was Star, and she was probably in her late 40s, maybe.
I don't know. I can never tell age.
Something like that. Mm-hmm. But she was very vibrant.
Oh, she was wonderful.
Is the word gregarious?
Gregarious.
Very gregarious.
So much joy, so much life, so positive.
And yeah. And she had that, she just had that vibrant attitude. And she was she was very much about positivity. She said, y'all got to be positive. You got to be positive.
Life is hard.
Yep.
But the one thing you have the power is to choose how you show up.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so she had this attitude of if she could be positive and vibrant like that she could live life in a way that was still beautiful. And in the process of that, she begins to tell us that she has 3 sets of twins. That's 6 kids. The twins are 12, 14, and 16.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, it seems as though what I can feel in this situation is you don't have a significant other in the picture.
That's helping you.
Yeah, that's helping you. And that felt very interesting. And she went on to say that she works 6 days a week, 14-hour shifts.
Yeah.
And here you have someone who is fully vibrant. And keep in mind.
It's 11 o'clock at night.
11 o'clock at night.
So it's the last hour of her 14-hour shift.
Yes. And she is still vibrant and being very caring towards us inside of it.
And joyful.
Obviously, our team has gotten back. We've eaten our meal. And
everyone is in love with her.
Absolutely.
Everyone is won over by her.
You cannot not love Star. Mm-hmm. And one of our team members goes, what's it going to cost to make her cry? Referring to a tip of wanting to bless her in a way that impacts her very, very intensely.
And before we'd gone on the trip, I had felt this impression from God. I want you to give this number away of money on the trip.
Yeah.
I actually felt like I was supposed to bring that much cash, but I didn't have time to get it. So I was like, got it. I will give it away just on my card somehow.
Yeah. So we're sitting there and Abby looks at me and throws out the number and says, should we give her this amount of a tip? And I was like, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And you second guessed yourself and split 100%. It in half. Like maybe
later, I was like, maybe we should just give her half so I can still give the rest of this away to someone else.
Yeah, I was like, no, absolutely not. This full amount must go to this person. Mm-hmm. And so she's
this is why it's helpful having a life partner.
It really is, so that you can like push back on each other and stuff. But she fully gets us the check. And runs a card. I'm filling out the tip thing at the end, and she's going to walk away from the table. And Abby says, "Hey, can I take a second to pray for you?"
Yeah.
And she starts praying for her, and specifically that she would get the secret desires of her heart that God would. And as we're praying, she's like, oh Lord, yes, Lord. Yeah, and like she is so like,
in it.
She is so like,
she cried when I was praying, and she was so tender. And the thing I kept feeling was like, I just feel like the secret prayers that you have prayed, God wants you to know that he hears.
Yeah.
And that he has your back. You don't have to do everything alone. Like he's with you. And then right then, her manager interrupts.
Yeah, in the middle of it, like looking concerned, and it seemed as though he was checking on her to make sure she was okay because she was sitting there. She goes, oh, they're just praying for me for my awesomeness. And
yeah, she did say that.
And he's like, Star is awesome. She's like one of the best people I've ever had work for me, and he's just elated to give her a compliment.
Yeah, which I loved. I loved that. Her manager was like in front of us going to tell her everything he loved about her. That's an awesome culture, work culture.
Yep, absolutely. And so she takes she ends up taking the receipt, and she was like, "Oh, thank you guys. I love you so much. Have a good night." And she's starting to walk off.
She's 2 feet from us. I've never seen a waitress
do this
so fast.
And she looks down at it, and she goes, "Holy fuck! Oh, I'm sorry." And she comes like throwing herself back down, and she just bursts into tears. She's like, "You do not understand." And she just goes into saying that this is exactly the amount she needed for rent.
Mm-hmm.
And that morning in the shower, she'd been praying, "God, I need money for rent. I need this much to make this happen." And she said it's just the slowest day.
Yeah. So she had,
and almost at midnight,
right,
we hand her the exact amount of what she needed to pay rent.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just getting undone. And then she's like
crying.
And then she's like, "I'm going to the back and I'm going to go brag."
Yeah. Well, it was so cute because she sat down, she starts crying, and she goes, "He does the impossible. God does the impossible." And it was just so precious. And then she did say, "I'm going to go do a victory lap."
Yeah. Yeah.
I got to go tell everybody.
So last part of the story is we're on our way out. You know, it's exactly like 12 o'clock. And as we're on our way out, the manager comes outside and grabs us. And he's like a guy's guy. He's not like a guy that shows a lot of emotions, I don't think. I mean, he has, kindness and stuff, but vulnerability might not be his thing.
Sure.
And he's just like, you guys, I'm trying to hold back tears.
Yeah.
That's incredible what you guys did. There's no one I know that's more deserving than her. And I am so overwhelmingly happy for her.
Yeah.
And he's just getting really undone in the conversation. And
tender.
Yeah. Abby asks if we can pray for him. And when we do, and he gets a little awkward in it, and Star bursts through the door in the middle of it. And she's like, take much of it. Take that prayer. It works. And she's just, she's jumping up and down, walks off.
She goes, "I know I maybe shouldn't, but I'm going to brag to everybody tomorrow." It was so cute. She was just the cutest.
I wanted to adopt her in life.
Yes.
I wanted her to be my
friend.
Yeah,
adopt
absolutely.
A friend.
But I think that this is a stellar example of part of what we're talking about today. This is such a worthwhile conversation because in part 2 of creating a successful life, here we have Star, who the observation is I'm watching her has this extreme positivity.
Yeah.
And I didn't get the sense that she was, and nothing about what she said was in denial about the reality of the difficulties of life.
Yep.
In fact, she was very open about embracing like, yeah, life is tough. If you're going to be, especially in this industry, even this service industry, you're going to deal with really difficult people. Like there was no cognitive dissonance inside of her situation.
Yeah.
But there was a part of her that said, no, I'm going to live a positive life. And see, here's the thing. In the midst of her having 6 kids that are very expensive to take care of and 14-hour work days, there is a lifestyle of success that she is currently living in. The environment around her, so much so that a manager will come out crying. It's not just, oh, one of my employees got a really huge gift. It's so much more than that. It's, oh, my employee who has been deeply impactful to this environment, who is so worthy of this beautiful gift. Like he's coming out to have a conversation about that. And the reality is that's an expression of a successful life, that our love, our positivity, the thing that we bring to the table leaves an impact on the world around us.
Oh yeah. I mean, and even she left an impact on you. I think that was your favorite experience on your birthday.
Absolutely. To me, that was my birthday gift. It wasn't just that I got to give an extravagant gift to someone. It was like I was being given the joy, the pleasure, the heartfeltness, the warmness, the beauty of this full person being fully expressed. Even before I was able to participate in loving her through that action, I was feeling loved by what she brought to my environment.
Yeah. Yeah. She had a lot of the things that I would say. So I'm going to go over and we'll talk about each of them individually, but she had gratitude. She was positive. She was kind-hearted. She was present and engaged. And we only met her for like 20 minutes,
Yeah.
But she showed up for those 20 minutes. And you've got to think, like, we did show up at the very end of her shift.
It could have been the time where she was grumpy and disconnected.
Or like, these people don't matter. It's the last part of the day. I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And she didn't. She was full on with each and every individual all the way to the end.
Mm-hmm. Which I guess it's also resilience and determination.
Yeah.
So she is living on our success list.
A couple other parts of our success list are teachable, forgiving, and honest. And we're going to get into all parts of those.
Yep.
But when we're looking at a situation like this, both her positivity and her gratitude, like even the way that she was so grateful about the gift that was given, I wanted to give more.
Totally.
Like it made me want to come back and be like,
yeah,
I want to give her more a second time over and over again. And there's something about like when we are showing up to this world, when we come into our life environments with this positivity and this gratitude, you can't help but have people around you be so affected by that and by that lifestyle of gratitude that you can't help but have people be like, oh, I want to give more to that. I want to give more opportunity. I want to give more finances. I want to give more connection.
I've actually seen that be true in business and leadership when there are people that are thankful for whatever, for your time, for your expertise, for your care, for your generosity. It is so much easier to want to give again and again and again, because there's something in human nature that is like, if I'm never enough, I want to avoid that feeling of never being enough. But if it feels like what you have to give matters, it feels like you'd want to give that over and over and over again.
Yes.
Because I always tell people in marriages, I'm like, whenever they do that thing you want them to do, if you can get grateful and like really grateful, it will train them to want to do that again. Versus if you're always harping on them for what they don't do, then they will want to avoid doing that thing.
And I want to add to that, like when people come to me and they're grateful for like what little time I have to give or what little input I have to give, and they're just like, you don't owe me anything. Thank you so much for that. Like, I don't feel like I'm perpetually failing someone. Like when someone's ungrateful, not only does it not feel fun, it's like I don't feel like my time, my attention, my energy has been honored when they're ungrateful for what I do have to give. I also feel like I'm just failing all the time.
Totally.
And once you feel like you're failing and you're not enough for that person,
it's hard to want to give more.
Absolutely. And it creates a situation where I'd rather avoid an individual. And in fact, I'd rather get an individual out of my environment altogether who isn't grateful.
Yeah.
Because what it really is when we're not grateful, we're really saying that we're looking at the environment around us and saying that our environment around us is a problem. It's problematic. And it's also a form of vilification. Whether it's like
you're not giving me enough. The world isn't giving me enough.
And nobody wants to be someone else's villain.
Yeah. Well, and if you read every single self-help book, gratitude is like the core of every single self-help book. Oprah, when I was growing up, did the like gratitude journal. Every day you journal things you're grateful for. Because it can really change your life. What it does is it takes you out of the victim role and it puts you in being a powerful person role.
It sure does.
We've talked about this, I'm sure, so many times before, but Joe Vitale, who's like who's a great coach. And he talked about how when he was homeless, he started deciding he wanted to change his life, and gratitude was, a pillar of every book he read. Yeah. He was homeless when he did it. And the only thing he owned was a pencil. So he was like, I have to start focusing on being grateful for this pencil, not thinking about all that I don't have, but focusing on all that I do have. And
what can I do with this pencil? What is this pencil to me? What can it create for me? There was all kinds of avenues about this pencil, but I still have this pencil.
Yeah. And I own something.
Yeah.
And this is mine. And so anyway, it was so inspiring because I think we often think gratitude works if you have something to be grateful for, instead of like, we all have something to be grateful for.
And let me add this. One of the lies that we believe as humans is that if we are dissatisfied with our experience, that we'll get more, that we'll get better.
Yeah.
So there's this lie that we believe that if the minute that I become satisfied, I become stagnant. My life becomes stagnant. And so I know a lot of people, I'm like, well, what's wrong with becoming satisfied? And they're like, well, nothing will ever happen in my life.
Yeah.
I won't try harder. I'm like, so you need to be dissatisfied to try harder? You need to be dissatisfied in order to have good opportunities happen? Like, it sounds like you're making your life miserable.
Right.
And one of the things that, again, that idea of gratitude, like never caused this sense of satisfaction inside of me never causes me to stay where I am.
No.
I'm just like, I'm loving what's at my doorstep as it's here. And it causes me to become creative. It causes me to come alive to more desires. And it causes me to believe that I can have more. And
we also have more emotional space. Like I just have more room inside to think about other things when I'm thinking about all that I have.
Yeah.
When I'm thinking about all that I don't have, I also think about all that I can't do.
Yeah.
It's like, when I think about all that I can be thankful for, it gives me space to think that in the future, I'll have things that I'm thankful for. If I think about all that I don't have right now, I project that into my future, into all the things I won't have in my future either.
Yeah.
And that energy, I also like to think about it. There's like an energy to gratitude. It's a more full energy.
Yep.
Where it more feels like you have something to give the world. And the energy of feeling like you don't have enough, the energy of lack feels like a hole inside me.
Yes.
It feels like the life is drained out of me.
So depressive.
It feels depressive. And so I think the more I'm aware of just the feeling in my body, I'm like, oh, I do have the power to shift that feeling in my body by engaging gratitude.
Yeah. I think that one of the things we as human beings don't understand is there's, this is going to sound like this would be challenged on a million levels, but the only lack that exists only exists within what we create inside of lack. And what I mean by that is that like we come from an eternal being in an eternal space where there is no lack or limitation. And that's a conversation that Jesus was having. Like, you're fine, you're covered, everything's going to be taken care of. Your Father in heaven knows your needs and everything like that. There actually isn't lack. But we create our own sense of lack. We create a reality of lack. The more that we actually believe that there's lack, there's not enough, we're ungrateful for stuff, we actually create a very limited experience inside of our lives. And I've watched it. When I believed that there was lack over an area, I created an immense amount of lack. I repelled opportunities. I pushed opportunities away.
You didn't notice opportunities?
I didn't notice opportunities. I felt a sense of unworthiness, so I wouldn't take those opportunities. And so there's this thing that when you get in this positivity and this gratitude, you start getting out of this sense of lack. You believe like, no, I am connected into a full, abundant warehouse of life that's fully available to me, and all my needs will get met and I'm going to get taken care of.
And this is where Viktor Frankl, his psychology is so valuable. He was in the concentration camps, and he said that they couldn't have all of the control because they couldn't take your hope from you. They couldn't stop you from giving that last piece of your bread to someone else. They couldn't. And that capacity to have gratitude and feel powerful.
There was an abundance inside
in the
of
midst of lack.
Yeah. So even in lack, you can experience, so an external lack, you can experience an internal abundance because you can partner in the sense of positivity and seeing goodness in front of you, even in the darkest of circumstances. You become a powerhouse, almost like a powerhouse that's generating electricity, a source of life to the world around you. And there can be a sense of abundance where rich or poor, slave or free, you can be in a position inside of your heart that is inside of a full abundance.
Yep. It's really crazy how much our attitude really affects our ability to see and show up. I was thinking about how when I am feeling the emotions of nothing will ever work out for me, I often the energy in me is not the same as the energy when I'm in the feeling of flow, which is like everything's going to work out for me. I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's normal when life happens. Like there's been a lot of things I went through that was pretty traumatic, and that can hit your positivity and your gratitude really hard.
Yeah. Yep.
And, but I've noticed like, I don't like feeling those feelings though of feeling gut punched. Like I like feeling in flow.
Yeah.
And so for me, I worked a lot on my mindsets to become positive and have gratitude and see opportunities and believe that there was abundant flow. Then I got kicked in the gut and I had to start over from ground zero.
Yeah.
And so what I've done is continually surround myself by resources that remind me that I'm powerful. Because when you go through something traumatic that you didn't choose, you instantly feel like I'm not powerful. Mm-hmm. When you go through something that just like, when life kicks the shit out of you, you're like, can I live a good life? Yeah. And is any of that true? And so I've had to go on the journey of obviously mourning and grieving and doing counseling and all that stuff. But I've also had to just be like, okay, I got to input positive things. I have to remind myself of truth that exists. Like I'm rereading You're a Badass at Making Money right now, because it's just such a good book to keep expanding your ability to remember truth, where like we can get knocked around on the inside. And there's a million different, I listened to The Inheritance the other day. It's a video by Graham Cook. I used to listen to that for years and years and years. And then I went through some hard crap and I'm like, oh, I need to rehear this. I need to rehear about how much God loves me. And I have the power, no matter how I feel from life, no matter what emotions I get stuck in, to continually input truth, to remind me. This is why we do the podcast, to try to remind people there is hope for your life. There is goodness for your life. There is universal abundance. Like there is something that we can connect to outside of us.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I think it's really good. Yeah. One of the things you're talking about is that when we go through places of pain, it's easy to go in self-protection mode.
Absolutely.
And part of expressions of self-protection is hardness of heart.
Yes.
Right. And it's
depression.
Mm-hmm. It's pessimism. Mm-hmm. Because when we get hit with pain, we get kicked in the gut. Oftentimes it's like, well, I don't want to be disappointed again like that. I don't want to feel that level of pain. So if I see the world as just a crappy place, I won't have hope and I won't get hurt. I won't have joy. I won't have gratitude. I won't, like, if I don't get into a positive vibe, then I can't feel the pain that happens when it doesn't go as expected and all that stuff. And there's something about like accepting this world is full of pain. It's full of problematic situations. It's very difficult. And I get to walk it out however I want in my heart posture. Me being hard-hearted or me being in that self-protectiveness isn't going to be the thing that solves my problems.
Totally.
It's going to be the places where I like bend my heart vulnerably into kindness and tenderness and vulnerability. And it's the places where I choose to re-engage gratitude and positivity that actually walk me through the process. And that to me is really getting reconnected to our source of love. Mm-hmm. Like what we oftentimes want to do in the midst of pain is disconnect from the source of love and become accusational towards love.
Yeah.
Love, goodness, positivity, hope, all that stuff is just garbage. It's a waste. And we're disconnecting ourselves from a life source when we get like that.
Yeah.
And that leads to a very unsuccessful life, a life that feels dim and it feels limited and it feels overwhelming and we feel powerless inside of it.
Yeah.
And so one of the notes that I made there is I talked about kind-heartedness. Mm-hmm. There is something like when we go into, a lot of us are not kind-hearted in our behaviors because we're in self-protection, right? We don't want people to take advantage of us. But there's something really powerful about what Jesus did. And I want to bring this up because Jesus was deeply kind-hearted. He made himself available to be thrown on a cross. He made himself available to be criticized, betrayed, all of that stuff. But he wasn't a doormat. It wasn't a thing that was passively happening to him. Like I'll see people who are kind, but they're actually kind out of passivity. It's an expression of passivity where they're not proactively being powerful. It's actually being a doormat to life because they're scared to have a voice. I'm not talking about doormatism. I'm talking about like, no, I have the power to lay down my life. I am deliberately engaging, being kind-hearted when someone is being harsh or circumstances are being really difficult. I am choosing this. Excuse me. I am choosing this and I am choosing this lifestyle. And what it does is it ends up making you a very confident and powerful person because you are in an act of taking ownership over your heart, ownership over the moment, choosing a lifestyle and an expression of that lifestyle that is both impactful for your mind, your soul, your being, and for other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what it was interesting. There's been a lot of battles between you and I inside of our marriage.
No.
Yep, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lie. And one of the conversations that I had with Barry, our counselor, is, he was like, what do you feel about kindness in the relationship? And I'm like, I feel guarded. I feel like kindness doesn't help. I don't get heard when I'm kind. I feel like I get walked all over. I feel like a doormat when I'm being kind. And he's like, he was like, do you feel like kindness is a passivity? Are you in a powerful place when you're choosing kindness? And he had the conversation about how it's God's kindness that leads us to repentance. And I really sat down with kindness as a person. I sat down and personified kindness. And I said, okay, kindness, what are the offenses that I have against you? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the Christianese people that I saw who were doormat people, they weren't powerfully kind. They were passively kind. Mm-hmm. This is the rule. And then they got taken advantage of in a million ways. It wasn't that they were showing up choosing to give their life away. Right? And then they were bitter and resentful about it. Mm-hmm. And what I realized is that kindness, true manifested kindness from a position of power is very liberating, and it does actually lead people to repentance. It is a deliberate action that we are choosing internally. And I perceive, and you may not have been aware of my engagement of it and how I was doing it, but in our relationship, I perceived a lot of changes happening where I started partnering with kindness over circumstances.
Oh, 100%. I didn't know you had this conversation. Like, you've never told me this story before. But I'm literally like, thank you, Barry. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Barry. Because I did see a huge shift in that. And it does work. And I did know you didn't believe in it. I could feel that. Like, I could feel your resistance towards being walked over more than I could feel your desire for kindness. It
was definitely like, I'm going to keep getting dominated in these circumstances if I get kind. And that's what a lot of people feel in their relationships.
Yeah.
Whether it's the intimate ones or it's just people in life with bosses, fellow employees. But a radical act of kindheartedness creates success in your life. It creates opportunities. And again, it puts you in that position of healthy, powerful.
Yeah. And often I think that when we do something in the opposite spirit. So like maybe me and you are in a fight and my defenses are up and you decide to be kind.
Yep.
Whenever we do something in the opposite spirit from what's happening in front of us, it's disruptive.
Yes.
It disrupts the pattern. It disrupts the pain. And so like,
it's a form of what we refer to as disruptive love. Mm-hmm. It's a love that starts disrupting the situation. It's a love that stands in opposition to what's happening, to what we really want to be doing. We actually get into a heart posture that says, no, I'm going to change the course of this situation by standing in opposition to the energy of what's here. And I'm going to engage it in this way.
That's a cool story. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank God for Barry changing our lives.
Good old Bear.
Yep.
I want to talk about being present and engaged. That's a heart posture that creates a deep sense of success inside of our life, because here's the reality. Life is passing most of us by. When we are in dissociation and we are in denial and we are not present, we miss out on the connections, the micro connections, the opportunities for creativity to happen. Because when I am present in a moment with someone, engaging their heart or engaging the life in front of me, I get inspired. Mm-hmm. I become creative. Life starts flowing out of me. Entire trajectories of people's lives can happen out of being present with one singular moment.
Yeah. And it's kind of crazy because for a long time, I didn't believe this, but the longer I've done counseling and read this science, I'm like, oh, it's really true.
Yeah.
That most of your pain is in the past or the perceived present.
Yeah.
Most of it's not in the actual present.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the safest places to actually learn to be is present.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you're like, if you aren't, now most of us in the present are thinking about past or perceived future.
Yes.
But if we can actually be right now in this exact
you can become
moment,
aware that you are safe in this moment. And you can also healthily tackle our history that's unresolved and the lies that we believe about our future.
Sure. Yeah. So it's hard to be present and engaged. And honestly, sometimes that looks like just saying yes to life. Like when somebody gives you an opportunity to do something that scares you a little bit,
dude,
say yes to it.
When I feel something that feels super scary, it's like scares the shit out of me. And they're like, hey, do you want to do this? I'm like, yep, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm going to go face this fear. I'm going to break through. I'm going to evolve into who I was created to be. Because part of having a successful life is becoming who we were made to be. Like there's like a truth of our being that is waiting to be revealed. And it can't be revealed when we're disconnected from the present, because all the present opportunities and experiences are literally sitting at our doorstep to reveal something about who we truly are, who we are created to be, our original design, the beauty of the love inside of us and the goodness inside of us and the strength and the power inside of us. But we run from being present and we miss out on finding out who we truly are.
Yeah. And that's why successful people are like, they're saying yes to the opportunities in front of them.
Yes.
And that goes into being teachable. They're learning and growing. Like when there's an opportunity to learn or grow or step into something, they're not running from it. They're actually just pushing into, leaning into, what is this that I have an option for?
Teachable, as a side note, is such a reality of living in humility. It's saying, I don't have anything to prove. For years, I had something to prove in the sense of like, I was told such at an early age that I should already know so much. So there was something wired inside of me that's like, oh, I must be broken that I can't so quickly pick up these things that the people around me understand so easily, that have 10, 15, 20 years ahead of me on, right? And so then I had a heart posture of like, I can't ask questions. I have to act like I know everything. Otherwise I'm bad. There's something broken about me. And humility really is like settling into our own skin and our own worth and saying like, I'm worthy and I'm lovable regardless of what I understand or don't understand. And here I am ready to listen and grow from relational issues. It's not just being teachable about like how to grow in being a great cook or something. It's about like, what is life trying to reveal to me? Because the truth is, if we are eternal beings having an earthly experience, we are here to actually apprehend truths and encounters. And so often inside of our pride or our insecurities, we resist the essence of being taught. And so we're missing out on the gift of the earth experience. And so to me, when I look through an eternal lens, I'm like, I want to live in a lifestyle of teachability so that everything that I was designed to gain from this experience here, I can actually apprehend. And, you know, Jesus talks about stirring up our eternal treasures. And to me, that's eternal treasure, when I am allowing my experience to impact me and grow from it.
Yeah. I also think teachable is being a lifelong learner, and it helps protect you from shame. Yeah. Because it's like, instead of being like, I should have known this already, it really gives you room to be like, yeah, I'm always learning. I'm going to be learning my whole life. Like if you believe, like the people I see truly transform, it's because they believe to constantly be learning. Yes. And this is a lesson I think my dad taught me really well. Like when I would make a mistake, there was a couple of mistakes I made that I felt like were so, like detrimental as a kid. And my dad would be like, did you learn something from it? And I'd be like, yeah. And then he'd be like, great. Then it was successful. Like he defined success as, can you learn from it? Yes. And my dad is a lifelong learner. Like, he's like picks up a new hobby and he learns everything about it. And then people who are constantly learning, like I see this in careers. There's never a career that you're going to have that you aren't going to have to learn the up and coming thing that is changing how the industry's done or changing how things are going. The people who are like, oh, I don't know how to do this, I'm going to go figure it out. Like there's this, this girl I work with, when she doesn't know how to do something, she finds everyone that does know how to do that. She sits down with them and she asks them questions, and she's like, being teachable is also the posture of being proactive to learn.
Yep. And that's another expression of being powerful.
Yeah. And this is why it's successful. Like, I see employees that are like, well, I don't know how to do that. And they just stay hovering in mediocrity.
Yes.
I see employees that are like, I can see that I'm going to have to learn how to do that because of where the industry is going. And so I'm going to proactively be taking courses. I'm going to be reading books. I'm going to be talking to people in my free time because I want to be the best that I can be, which is the idea that everything can be learned. And that to me is the most hopeful thing. I'm like, I didn't know how to regulate my emotions, but everything can be learned. I didn't know how to do conflict, but everything can be learned. Yep. I didn't know how to have finances be successful, but everything can be learned. The mentality that everything can be learned and being teachable is that will change your life.
Yep.
I'm wondering if we should do the last 3 in our next episode.
Nah.
You're just going to run through them.
We're going to hammer it out here.
Okay.
But I'll also say, what was I going to say about being teachable? I forgot. Anyways, moving forward. I think an aspect of creating a successful life is forgiving, being forgiving. So if we have a heart posture, it doesn't matter what we've been through. I've been online and I've watched people have conversations about forgiveness, and that like you don't need to have forgiveness inside of your life and you can move forward in your life, especially people in the PTSD realm who ramble on about not having to forgive people. It's your choice to forgive people. I'm like, you're right. It's your choice to do all that. But unforgiveness creates actually barriers inside of ourselves.
Limitations.
Complete limitations, because what we do is we end up victimizing ourselves. We put up hardened walls. We don't risk the same way that we do. When we live in forgiveness, it is an act of surrender where I am retrusting life. It doesn't mean that I'm letting people in past certain boundaries, but my heart that gets hardened in unforgiveness is actually being softened in forgiveness. And I'm saying, I trust that life is going to take care of me. I trust that I'm going to get the healing that I need. I trust that I'm going to see redemption inside of this life. Like recently, I had a terrible betrayal, and I had the option inside of the betrayal to say, okay, I'll never trust people ever again. Or I go, well, betrayal is part of the human experience, and I will have to grieve that betrayal. But I'm going to keep my heart really tenderized towards people and figure out what I can learn from this experience to get better boundaries inside of my world and listen to my intuition much better than I did in this circumstance, right? And because of that tenderness, I kept the flow of love. Because of the forgiveness, I keep the flow of love on inside of me and through me. And I get to feel abundant life. I get to feel joy and pleasure in the midst of deep betrayals because I'm engaging forgiveness as a deep core value.
Well, and hatred doesn't help us. Like if you would have hated the people who betrayed you, it doesn't help you.
No.
It keeps you bitter and rehearsing over and over again what they
Rehearsing
did.
the situation. Yeah, absolutely.
Do I want to say what practically forgiveness looks like? It looks like grieving and then forgiving. Grieving and then forgiving.
Over and over again. It looks like very angry conversations in our head and acknowledging that and going into forgiveness in that.
Yes. It's just the choice to not get stuck in it. And like I have had to forgive multiple times because every time a new wave of pain comes up, I have to feel it. I have to grieve it. And then I have to forgive for that angle too. And it's hard. And it's not one and done to me. That's why I love Forgiveness in the Shack. It was like in the book, The Shack, that he's carrying this, I don't want to ruin, I guess he's carrying this body of his daughter, and every step who's dead, every step he's taking, he says, I forgive, I forgive, I forgive. And it is painful to say in the beginning, and it's painful to do. And for me, something that has helped me with forgiveness is my awareness of my own need for it. Like, I'm like, I actually need to be forgiven for a lot of things.
Yes.
And like, there's a lot of places that I was trying my best, but I was broken.
Yes.
And so my own need for forgiveness helps me want to give forgiveness.
Which what you're talking about is a connection to the reality of my own humanity and the messiness of my humanity. When we can't forgive people, like as a lifestyle, I'm not talking about I'm not talking about a one and done. I'm talking about when we don't have the capacity to have an ongoing working out of forgiveness in our heart towards people who have done sometimes really dark stuff towards us. At the end of the day, what we're acknowledging is that we're not connecting to the reality of our own humanity, our own sins against others, the ways that we affect others.
Yeah.
And I think that this is also, to add a side note, you know, we've talked about this in a lot of our stuff, but forgiveness is an acknowledgement of debt that's been created that no one can repay.
Yeah.
People have created a debt inside of my heart that they don't have the capacity, no matter what they do, to repay that debt. There's no way I can make them pay it by hating them or demanding something of them. That is a repayment that can only happen between me and an unconditionally loving creator that repairs those things inside of my soul.
Yeah, I think, I also think forgiveness is something. I grew up in a church that read this book, Love, Acceptance, and Forgiveness. And so they like just swept everything under the rug.
Yeah.
And there was no boundaries, and there was no standards, and there was no accountability, and there's no cleaning up your mess. And that is not forgiveness.
No.
I just want to say that. Like, it created much more chaos. Like, there has to be standards that we hold and boundaries that we have. So
hard conversations that happen.
Forgiveness is not, it's not that. Forgiveness is really letting go of our hatred on the inside.
Right.
And choosing that we still want love present in our lives.
Yeah.
It's like an invitation for love in our own lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really good. Last two, honesty. I think honesty is so profound in the success process and experiencing a successful life. I think honesty begins with the ability to be honest with ourselves. It's where we shatter a relationship with denial and we get honest with the fears that we have in our lives, the pain that we're holding inside of ourselves, the lies that we believe, like we getting honest about the insecurities that we have, the places that we have judgments towards ourselves and others. Honesty is foundational to freedom because it begins to get the ball rolling where all of a sudden I go, oh, I can get a release from all these things that exist if I acknowledge that they exist. A lot of people that would come into my office early on, I'd be like, you have all these issues. And they're like, no, I don't. And I'm like, all right, so your biggest issue is your issue of denial. You have yet to decide that you want to get honest about this. We cannot fix what does not exist.
Right.
And it's when we can begin to start with that honesty in our own hearts that all of a sudden we can begin the process of moving forward. And that's where success comes. That's where joy and pleasure can begin to happen because we can resolve the pain inside of our heart. We can resolve the problems and the difficulties. We can get rid of that self-judgment that keeps us so depressed.
Yeah. Getting honest with ourselves is a little bit painful in the beginning, but it's so liberating.
It is.
There's a liberation that comes from acknowledged reality.
Yeah.
Like it just feels so good for the truth to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
And so when you finally own, I do have fear about this, or like me and Pete, I think this is what we do every week this past few years is like, you know what? I realize that I'm really freaking codependent. Yeah, me too. You know what? I realize I'm really bad at getting defensive in conflict. Yeah, me too. You know, like that just finally just owning and noticing like, no, that's actually true.
Yep.
Like self-acknowledgement, like even you being like, oh, there's a part of me that doesn't agree with kindness.
Yeah.
You have to be honest with yourself enough. You can't change what you won't own.
Yep. And even that progresses externally, into the honesty as we get honest with like the messes we make with other people and stuff like that. Really what it is it's facing fear head on. And so we begin to find a life that feels successful as we're conquering our fears. Like we're like, oh, I'm not so fragile. I'm not so easily broken. And what this honesty does is it begins to build a lifestyle of resilience, which is the last thing that we want to talk about. Because it's like, I know a lot of people who live a lifestyle of fragility. Mm-hmm. They believe everything's too difficult. It's so hard. It's so painful. And that doesn't mean that it's not difficult and painful, but they believe that they're fragile and they have very little resilience inside of their life. And so they live a very small and mediocre life. And when I say small and mediocre, I don't mean you're not a well-known famous person, so you're small and mediocre. I mean, you're living a life internally where you're not actually overcoming the heart issues inside of yourself, and you're not actually expressing the true desires and dreams. You're not risking, you're not creating, you're not being brave in relationships and growing in deep connections with people. So it's just a life of mediocrity. You're existing.
Yeah.
Right. But resilience, building this heart style of resilience creates a deep sense of connection and depth and endless possibilities in your life.
Yeah. I have to say, if you don't quit, you win. Like most of my life, I'm just dyslexic, ADHD, I've got so many sensory issues. And the one thing I think all the time is that everything I've ever overcome was just because I believed I might be slower than everyone else, but if I just keep at it,
yes,
I will get it. And then it's crazy because then you master stuff and other people quit. Then you become better at things than a lot of people because you just don't quit. It's not even, they all could have done it too, but most people quit. And that's how I've been with any area I've changed my life, is like, if I don't quit, I'll win. And I see people try things and give up before they actually get to see their life transform.
It's interesting because I'll say this to kind of wrap it on this note, but Harrison Ford was once asked, "What's your secret to success?" And he said, "I didn't quit." And they said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "Well, all my friends who came out here to act and do stuff, they all slowly quit because it felt too hard. It felt like too much. They didn't believe that it would ever work out for them." He said, "Honestly, I was working on a set as a grip." So a grip does all the background, like heavy lifting and building stuff and things like that. And he got noticed in the background.
Wow.
And that's how he ended up. I think that's how he got cast for Star Wars, if I remember right.
I don't know.
I think that was part of his story. I could be wrong inside of that, but I do know that was something that he had said. And it's interesting to me, like, I'm 41 years old and my life is just getting started. Mm-hmm. Other people are going, I'm 41 and my life is moving towards the end. Like, I should have already accomplished everything between 20 and 40. Where I'm like, no, everything was setting the stage for my 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s. Like, I'm just getting started right now. Yeah. I'm not quitting. I'm engaging life and moving forward. And so I think that, even as a side note, people who are resilient are the people who get promotions and opportunities, because, like, when I look at someone who's resilient, I'm like, yeah, they may be a mess right now, but they won't quit.
Totally.
They do not tap out. I would love to give them an opportunity. They will fight their ass off to figure out how to make life better. They're teachable. They'll listen. They'll keep growing. They will not stop and tap out. And that's somebody you want in your environment. That's somebody you want in your friend circle. You know, that's somebody you want at your place of business. So that's pretty much what we have on the heart posture of creating a lifestyle of success. And anything else on that before I move towards wrapping this up?
No.
Well, right now we have our life consulting masterclass that's happening. We're getting signups for that. It begins in January, and it is a year long of people really working out these things that we're talking about inside of their hearts so that they can build the strength and the power to live out a successful life and to become life consultants if that's what they want, or become deeply powerful leaders inside of their environments. You
could call it like a life transformation school.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. But also, people have launched their businesses.
Yep.
We just had somebody in our second year who's said they've already met over 200 hours of consulting.
Yeah.
We've seen lots of people who want to jump into consulting have found the ability to do it. And people who've wanted to change their life have begun changing their life dramatically.
Yeah. So if you want to apply for that, applications are happening, and you
got to do it soon, because there's a lot of prereq work that you have to do for the school.
Yep.
And you don't want to rush that.
Yep. You don't want to rush that. So
it's fun prereq work.
Yeah, it's super great. You'll have enough time to do it. You just need to get in now, though.
Yeah.
Get your application in now. So we're going through a bunch of interviews and stuff like that. And it's a very limited amount of people that we let in because of how we've designed the school. So, with that said, you can go to Justin and Abi, that's abi.com, and you can go ahead and click on Masterclass and Life Consulting Masterclass page and get that there. And hey, if you're feeling impacted by this, rate, review, subscribe, and share. We've had so many people come to us and be like, I actually listened to your podcast because I saw such incredible ratings, not just the 5-star ones, but the written ones on iTunes or wherever it is that you listen to this podcast at. If you can review it for us, that's the gift you can give us. If you're like, I want to give back to them, go write the reviews. That's really helpful for the building of this and spreading of the message. So, all right. Anything else, Abi?
We made it.
Be like Star. The lady
No, I know.
Be like Star.
Be like Star. Be a star.
Be a star.
Be a star.
All right, I'm going away.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.